I was just out getting some morning coffee and I was thinking, man, trauma is so interesting, for a lack of a better term. I remember when I was in my teens, I joined the military and we would go on these missions where we had to crawl on our backs in the wet sand. And the wet sand would get all down your back. And then hours later, we'd be back at the barracks, and the drill sergeants would say, you took too long to walk, and so now you don't have any time to shower, so just go to bed. And then the sand would dry, and in the middle of the night, you'd toss and turn, and as you were tossing from one side to the other, the sand and gravel and pebbles would all collect on one side of you, and you'd wake up and your back was like hamburger. It was awful. Well, that was that. Years later, when all of my childhood developmental trauma and adult trauma occurred, so much of that sleeping giant within, and I've talked about the sleeping giant within, all that unhealed trauma from the past just comes up. And after my adult trauma, I never enjoyed anymore going to the beach, because now, even walking on the beach, the sand brings up that trauma of years ago when I was in the military, and we had to fall asleep, and all night I felt like sandpaper was rubbing against my back. It was horrible. But it's just interesting because I haven't thought about that. Haven't dealt with it. Well, I haven't dealt with it. That's why, you deal with trauma, or trauma deals with you. And then after my adult trauma, so many things came back from my past. I've said this before, even now when somebody opens up a can of soda, because I was raised around, alcoholics, that can of soda opening up brings my body back to the trauma of when I would hear a can of beer opening up, and all the horrific stuff that would follow hearing that can of beer opening up. So I just wanted to let you know, you are not alone. If so much of, secondary trauma comes back, or unhealed trauma comes back, things that you can't even explain, profound anger, profound rage, things bother you now that haven't bothered you in decades, or new things bother you now that never bothered you before. You're not insane. You're not going crazy. You're dealing with trauma, and your body keeps the score. So, you're not alone. You are not alone.